Fight.
Neo: The World Ends With You is probably my favorite game that released this year. I was actually quite surprised how good this game actually turned out, especially considering that the last game was released about, 13 years ago. Neo: The World Ends With You was a sequel to The World Ends With You that was first released on the 3DS and then was later ported on cell phones, and then after that it was ported to the Switch. The World Ends With You, I think, was probably one of the best 3DS games that released. The combat was an absolute blast and I really enjoyed the story and characters, and then the music was absolutely awesome as well. Neo: The World Ends With You surprises me in that it's a sequel that feels like it hasn't missed a beat. Like, I was actually surprised how much of the original that it felt like. Like, it captured the whole spirit and essence of the original The World Ends With You. And that's impressive considering how long the original game was released. And it also just doesn't help that most sequels that Square Enix does kinda always sucks kinda badly. But this one, it didn't. I was quite surprised. In this video, I want to talk about how awesome this game is, but I won't go past the end of week 2 just because this game's still pretty new. But everything before that, I will spoil, so watch at your discretion. So, at the start, the story's pretty straightforward. Basically, your character Rindu and his buddy Fret both are playing the Reapers game, which, like the original, if you beat the Reapers game, you get a chance to come back at life. But of course, things aren't all that simple. It seems simple at the beginning, but there's all kinds of twists and turns that you'll soon find out that Rindu and his friends are playing pretty much a never-ending game because the Reapers are kind of cheating at it. There's a lot in between, and there's a lot you'll find out more when you actually play it. I think the story is pretty engaging. I really enjoyed it. I think Rindu as a main character, though, he's kind of lacking compared to Neku. He's like, it's kind of hard to explain. Neku was kind of like angsty and like hated everyone. Rindu is kind of more indifferent, but his actual development isn't quite as good as Neku's. Now, moving on to Fret, Rindu's best friend, I actually really like this character. At first I thought Fret was going to be kind of an annoying sidekick type character, but he was actually quite well written. He's pretty funny, amusing, and as the game goes on, he develops a little bit more serious, and he, as a character, I think he was really well done. And then there's Nagi, your other teammate, who really, she didn't get much development. I mean, she has kind of amusing quirks, but overall she's kind of bland, to be honest. But I wouldn't call her bad, and I didn't actually find her that annoying. The fourth person that joins the team is Sho from the first game, who was actually a villain. So it was actually kind of cool to see him come back, as a team member in this game, although he doesn't stay for long. I mean, he leaves at the end of week 1, but we'll get into that in a sec. So this time, instead of having partners, which is just one character, you're actually given a team, which is different than the original. And you'll actually fight against other teams as well. I know in the first game there were other partners and teams around, but you didn't really engage with them that much. In this game, you will fight the other teams quite a bit, which I think is pretty cool. And speaking of teams, your teams will change a bit once Sho leaves the party at the end of week 1. Your next team member, even though it's a spoiler, isn't Neku, but Beat. which I thought was pretty cool the way they hid the fact that it wasn't Neku, but it was actually Beat, even though they go out of their way to make it look like Neku. But Beat's not the only character who'll join your team. There is, I'll just say your team will get a little bit bigger by time you reach the end of the game. But Beat rejoining the Reapers game was a pretty awesome moment. And if you've never played the original, Beat was actually Neku's partner from the first game. So seeing Beat return was pretty cool. So now that I talked about some of the main characters, let's talk about the villains and supporting characters real quick. I think the villains for this game are pretty good. The new Reapers are very strong, and honestly, they seem a lot stronger than the Reapers from the previous games. But I think the Reapers in this game are pretty good, and at the same time, you just love to hate them because they keep cheating and then the game keeps going on and on. But the side characters you meet too, which are the other teams in the game, I think are also well written as well. Some of them are allies, some of them aren't, and I kind of like the dynamic of how the other team is kind of like your rivals, and I think some of them are pretty well done. And even though some of the other teams are kind of, turn on you as well, I do kind of feel bad when they get erased as well. All in all though, the story and the characters for this game are very good. And like I said, I won't spoil past the end of week 2, but week 3 is just phenomenal. But you kind of need to have played the first game, or at least watch the anime to truly appreciate it, but even so, it's still pretty good. Now, moving on to gameplay, like the original, you collect pins that do different attacks. Since this one is team-based, you have 4 to 5 characters, which each have a different pin assigned depending on which ones you want them to use, which can range from long-range attacks, melee attacks, charge attacks, area attacks. There's all different kinds of pins, and the more you play through the game, you can unlock uber pins, which are stronger, and you can chain up your attacks as well, which is pretty cool. Which is one of the things I like about the team mechanic, is instead of just using one pin like you would in the original, you can use pretty much all of them all at once, which does pretty good amount of damage. I think the combat is pretty fun, fast. The normal enemies are pretty easy, but I will say that the bosses are a little bit difficult and are definitely the highlights of the game. I think the boss battles are just so much fun, and they have a little bit of difficulty to it, which makes them pretty challenging. The bosses also have some pretty awesome themes, which fighting them just hypes me up so much. So aside from battling, you can also buy clothing that is pretty much armor that gives you defense and stats like attack power, HP, whatnot. You can also buy different pins at the shops as well. And there's also food shops where you can buy food and eat to boost up your stats, which helps as well. And certain characters only like certain food, so be mindful of what you feed them so the stats aren't a waste. There's also a bunch of different side quests to do in the game, which helps because it builds up your social network where you can then spend friend points that unlock a bunch of different things, ranging from higher difficulty, or using the same button for the same pen, or using more than one uber pen, or you can also get items from these. You get a lot of friend points to spend. Basically, if you do good in one of the dives, which is Nagi skills, if you get gold, you'll get 6 friend points, or if you get bronze, about 2. It's good to get as many as you can so you can unlock a lot more of the stuff from the social network. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is the freaking music. It is so good in this game. The first one had a great soundtrack as well. This one is just as good. It has a few remixes from the original, which I kind of wish they didn't do so many, just because this soundtrack can actually stand on its own. Just listen to a few of the tracks of this game.
Sounds like a tremor, everybody's in the club getting the vibe together. Hands in the sky, yo, we move to the floor, leave you stressing. Unhappiness at the door, keep it funky. With a 4-4 beat from your radio's.
Hustle and Bustle, Breaking Free, Last Call, Scramble are some of my favorite tracks in the game. But honestly, the entire soundtrack is pretty good. And it did a really good job of capturing the way that sounded from the first The World Ends With You. So I was impressed that the music style was pretty much more or less the same. But all in all, final thoughts for the game, I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's a shame that the series is still kind of niche, even though it got an anime and a sequel, even though it happened 13 years. But this was a very good sequel, and I really do hope they continue making these games. And I do hope more people, play this series because it's very good. So yeah, that's all I got. I hope you guys liked the video.